Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Yard Sign, the most important and relevant podcast in politics. Yours truly, Jonny Torres. Your host, as always. Thank you so much for watching. Fashionably late, as always, but still here nonetheless. Thank you so much for watching. For those of you out there, I hope you're enjoying your Martin Luther King Day. Hope you did your day of service, right? Because I think that's what they're trying to make it now, like a day of service across the country. And, of course, we'll talk a little bit about Martin Luther King's influence and kind of the current state of affairs. Also, I'm genuinely excited to go see One Night in Miami. Regina King, who famously known, I guess, as Cuba Gooding Jr.'s wife in Jerry Maguire. I would say that's probably her most popular role, right? This is her directorial debut, and the movie looks amazing, has a great cast, and very factually based. So definitely check that out if you're looking to do something to recognize Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Is it his birthday or just his Memorial Day? It is his birthday, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Not today, but it's observed on the third Monday in January.
Got it. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and pull up today's topics here. Hang on. I'm on the wrong screen. There we go. All right. So plenty to talk about. Again, Martin Luther King Day. We're also going to talk about Impeachment 2.0. President Trump, still your president, still in office. A big tank censorship and how it hit home right here with the yard sign. And then, of course, the Biden administration. We're going to take a quick look at the first 100 days, some of the things they're already promising, and why that should scare the hell out of you, because there's really no other way to describe it. So before I do that, let me go ahead and switch over to the round table for our cast today. Got a familiar face back in the mix. Very excited to have him back. Ladies and gentlemen, on the far left, that is Chris Chambers. How are you, sir? Oh, hang on. Sorry. Always forget the most important part. There we go.
I'm doing pretty good, Johnny. Thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, thank you so much. You've been away a little while. You got a little flack for some of your online activities. Well, we won't get too deep into that, but nonetheless, excited to have you back. Thank you so much for being here. Family well? Holidays went well?
Families well. Holidays were awesome. A little different this year with the COVID, but we still had a great time. Had some friends in town, and it was good overall.
All right, awesome. Well, and then, of course, over there on the right, not too far to the right, is Anibal David Cabrera. What's up, buddy?
Hey, doing good. Liking the weather. The Bucks won yesterday, so it's always a good time to
I know. Can we squeeze in a little sports here and talking about how amazing that game was last night? Low scoring, but, I think it was what everybody hoped it would be. It was kind of a quarterback showdown.
Hey, we got the job done.
That's all. It's a W. A W. It's a W. It's a W.
Yeah. Now everybody's talking about how Drew Brees walked off the field. They're saying that as he was walking off the field, he kind of like looked back one last time right before he went through that tunnel. Do you think he retires?
I think he does. Drew Brees is 42 years old.
Yeah, yes. He's right behind Brady there.
Yeah, I think we will see him retire after this season.
I'd say they give it one more year. I'd say he gives it one more year. Mostly because, again, we got to remember, these guys play at the top of their game. These are the best at what they do. And I think some ego comes along with that, People are sorry, hang on a second. Saying, it's all about the records. It's all about the we'll talk about the Facebook stream here in a second, Anibal, because he's messaging me. But he has so many records tied with Tom Brady that I think he comes back to maybe either defend or takes back some of those records. Don't you think?
Possibly, but I think Tom showed him who's the best quarterback yesterday. So
yeah.
If they would have beat him, yeah. But I think Brady had the upper hand, and that's just my opinion. I don't foresee him coming back.
But could there be any tougher of a road for a football team than having to go up against New Orleans and then having to follow that up by going up against Green Bay?
It's going to be a fun game next week when it comes to Green Bay. I will say I was a little concerned because, one, we'd already lost 2 games to them this season, and we were playing at their house. And that's always a very challenging thing to do. But I will also say that postseason for the Saints,
yeah,
was also in our favor, though.
Right.
The fact that this is the third in a row that he's lost a postseason when it comes to playing, that they get kicked out of postseason. So I'm not surprised that this occurred, but I was a little concerned that they'd already beat us twice.
Yeah, I think that third time's a charm. I think they had more than enough time to realize where they messed up early in the season, and we were victorious yesterday, and that's all that matters. So now I'm just looking forward to next week. A little nervous about that. I believe it's going to be 25 or 32 degree weather.
Well, and Brady said, in his post-game interview, he says, my blood's thinned out a little bit, being down here in Tampa, and that does happen pretty quickly.
And then you might have some Buck players now who's never played in that type of environment. So it's going to be very interesting.
I don't think they had any really cold weather games this season.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, we were obviously going to get to this in the big tech censorship part of the show, but being that it's actually become an issue about tonight's broadcast, we'll go ahead and address it up front, and we can maybe just swap the topics around. But for this particular episode, we are not able to broadcast on Facebook because it seems that. And I'll be perfectly honest about this whole thing. Not only are they targeting conservatives, and I would say probably mostly conservatives, but there are liberals, and maybe quasi-independents that are targeted too, on a big censorship push by Facebook and by other of the big tech companies leading up to this inauguration. It's posted on their website where they kind of break down everything that they've been doing. I've never had my account, miraculously, I've never had my account suspended for any reason. But a lot of other people who have also never been suspended before for violating any of the terms of service for Facebook are being censored until after the inauguration because they think they're being preemptive in fueling any of this anger, frustration, which what they would say caused the siege on the Capitol that happened on January 6th.
I think and I said this before last time, the hypocrisy on all of this is immense. It's quite interesting. Even to hear Amazon's excuse for why they kicked off Parler is a big one. Is that they were organizing and things were happening there. You can go on Twitter right now and see just as divisive, threatening, and organizing for what happened on January 6th.
Right.
January 6th. So why wasn't Twitter taken off? No, it wasn't taken off. And so that's why what's upsetting everyone, again, is that there is not even level playing field. If you're going to take off Parler, you should have taken off Twitter to make it into a point that they are also they're also looking at their people that are commenting and making posts and everything, tweeting, twittering. I don't know. I don't have a Twitter account.
So I have mixed feelings about this. First of all, you're right. I don't think they've been fair how they've been, blocking the different groups, whether it's going to be liberals or conservatives. Going back to the president, so I believe everybody has a First Amendment right. You should not censor anybody's speech, but it's limitations on that. I can't go running through a movie theater saying fire, fire, fire.
Correct.
I'm gonna face a little backlash on that. Kind of mixed feelings. Do I think some of the president's what he tweeted or whatever he said last week was a little divisive? Yes and no. I think it's just how you interpret it. Mm-hmm. And you see all the snippets, especially on CNN, they just take out certain sound bites. However, what we saw, last week at the Capitol, that it was just fuel to that fire.
Correct.
So, and it's Facebook, it's Twitter, the ones to be able to should be the ones who have that much power to censor somebody. I don't know. I can't answer that. But I think some had to be done after you saw what took place in the Capitol.
I agree. I think something definitely should have happened, and people that were inciting violence and that were causing mischief and that were trying to organize, all of their accounts should have been frozen or suspended or taken off completely. But again, I have the Ayatollah still commenting and putting tweets out there talking about death to Israel and death to America. We have terrorists that are still on there. We have rogue states that throw gay people off of buildings still on Twitter. And again, this is the hypocrisy that a lot of people are talking about. I agree with you. Something had to be done, and people's Twitter accounts and Facebook should have been throttled down. But now the example is, okay, you're going to get rid of Trump, who is still a sitting president.
Right.
A lot of other nations are now very concerned about the power of Twitter. Twitter tried to go into Uganda's election cycle and try to comment on them about what they're doing on their site, on their country. Yep. And so now India and now a lot of other countries are thinking about removing Twitter's ability to allow them into their countries. Because again, at the end of the day, tech is very powerful and everything else, but at the end of the day, the state is the most powerful entity when it comes to organizations.
Correct. Well, and this is the issue that we see not only in tech, primarily in tech. You see the major hypocrisy, right? Because if they want to play in China, if they want to play in Russia, they have to play by those government rules, right? But they don't. So they're not holding everybody equally to account. And then again, you have your countries like France and Germany, or even Russia, who came out and said, "Hey, this censorship stuff is not cool. Like this is potentially a very dangerous slippery slope." But then you see it even in the NBA, and the NBA, who likes to play with China as well, and then they want to come back here and talk about social justice and equal rights and all the social justice topics that we're dealing with here, but yet meanwhile they stay incredibly silent on all the on all the things that the Chinese government's doing to the Uyghurs, and in terms of slave labor and wages and other social issues that are going on over there.
If you hit one comment and one topic, you have to hit them all. That's just how it should be.
Right.
No, I totally agree. So it's going to be interesting how the repercussions of big tech. What's going to happen after this. So that's very going to be very interesting. Before. President Trump, he had a agenda to go after tech, but now with the new administration, I doubt you'll see that. So how do you check them? How do you hold them accountable?
Well, before the election, during the election cycle, I think it was like 97% of all donations from tech companies and employees of tech companies were to the Democrats. And so very little Republicans and conservatives are in that sphere that are getting donations from them. So you saw a lot of money coming from the techs into the Democrats. So I don't know how much they will be I think they're going to enjoy this time right now, but I think the people are going to be very upset and are going to push for them to get some kind of, I don't know, big oil was broken, AT&T was broken. It's just a matter of time before Alphabet and Facebook and some of the other ones get broken too.
Yeah, Hector's commenting because we are live on YouTube, by the way. And for those of you listening who are going to hopefully see this at some point on Facebook, we are currently being temporarily suspended on Facebook because they are trying to stifle or limit any kind of political speech on Facebook leading up to the inauguration. And again, I think this is incredibly dangerous territory. And if nothing is done between now and the election of a Republican president, what will truly, reveal itself is when a Republican president is elected, are they going to do the same to those on the left? Are they going to do the same to those, who, again, are threatening the president as they've done for 4 years, have been questioning the integrity of the election as they have for 4 years, have been questioning, every policy the president has put forth and trying to challenge it like they have for the past 4 years? Are these big tech companies going to stand up and censor those voices as well?
No, not at all. I don't think it's going to happen whatsoever. As long, again, you saw the cards during the basketball situation when it came to Hong Kong and Taiwan. And if they bent the knee for the money, then I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to do that, and they're always gonna push back. So I think tech is gonna do what tech wants to do and gonna do what it can to protect itself and its ecosystem.
It's such a big, powerful machine. There's limited accountability. I think we're gonna see that for a while. But one question I have to ask myself: why are we in this position today? And I think just over the last 4 years, there's just, Republicans have been in control. You have a lot of people feeling like they're disenfranchised. So I think this is kind of like a recalibration. Not saying if it's needed or what so, but I think we're going to start seeing these waves and these cycles as we move forward in the future.
Yeah, look, I'm over here trying to see if we can let people know on Facebook that we're over here live on YouTube. But the scary thing is that when does this stop? Right? When if ever does this go back to normal, or are we going to have to find alternatives like we're already doing? And I'm not saying there shouldn't be, but again, is there going to be a time where we can have a level playing field on these big social media platforms, or are we going to have to resort to what's happening now, going on like Parler and going on Gab and going on some of these other ones that are smaller in scope, don't have quite the reach, don't have, and again, and the impact that that's going to have on future elections. This is something that they're going to continue to push hard on for the next 2 years to continue to then shape our elections, because now Republican candidates and groups cannot reach voters through these social media platforms, but those on the left can.
Johnny, like I said, I just think this is just a fallout from the last 4 years. I think the Republican Party, some of it has been like radical, right. And you have some of your congressmen, your people in your office, your Matt Gaetz, your Josh Hawley, and I think the traditional Republican Party, or that traditional Republican, constituent, was, especially the older ones, was more, a little bit in the middle, like your John McCain type of politicians. So now you have this new wave of coming in, and I just think this is just a repercussion of that.
But do you think it's appropriate, knowing that the Republican Party was going after big tech and starting to do a little censorship and talking about Section 230 in regards to the way they broadcast and everything else? Do you think this is now like payback?
Yeah. I think it's clear.
But do you think it's appropriate?
No, it's not appropriate.
Yeah,
but it's retaliation, and like the old saying, it's no fun when the rabbit has the gun. So, and I think this is what we're seeing right now. So.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I just think it's scary to see that this kind of influence is already behind one political party. Right. I don't think big tech was ever behind the Republican Party whatsoever.
No,
we were always more than willing, even though a lot of conservative viewership and a lot of what do I say? A lot of viewership was coming from the conservative movement into things more online, because a lot of our normal media was already taken away from us. So I agree with you that it is probably payback what's happening now, but this also pushes for local businesses and other conservatives to start building their own platforms. And I don't mean platforms as like social media or like Twitter. I mean like hardware, where it's like we need to be building data farms, and we need to be able to do that. So then when something like this does happen, Parler is able, or other organizations are able to move off of Amazon, which is extremely left-leaning, into something that's a little bit more friendly for normal Americans.
No, I definitely agree, and I think if in any type of conservative, when you take into consider campaigning in the future, they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to be innovative and come up with a different way to do business, because your big social media platforms, your Twitters, your Facebooks, it's obvious that the rules have changed. We're in a different playing field now.
So talking about this, how do you and Hector, you made a good point in regards to Congress members that are now starting to see pushback from what they participated in the organizing of the rally, and then those that are still fighting big tech now. So you mentioned Matt Gaetz, and I agree with him. I agree with you in that sentiment, that I think a lot of what was presumed to happen before January 6th no longer applies now. So the coattails of the president, which means like the influence the president will have after he gets out of office, is almost non-existent at the moment.
Right.
So how many congressmen and senators do you think this is going to implicate going forward?
I think it's going to be quite a few. I think the ones who had played a part in the rally, where they claimed that incited it, I think any type of Republican who is still pro-Trump, still on Trump's coattails, I think they're going to see some very big implications. And like I said, it's going to be like a calibration. And I saw something today. You had some of the big companies pulling back money from Rick Scott, or there was another senator, another company was going to do a fundraiser for him, and they canceled that. So I think any type of Republicans who are very pro-Trump, I think they should be worried right now and in the foreseeable future until things kind of level itself out.
Yeah, you got to give. I think I told a few people during this whole process, like give it a month, give it a few weeks, and let it all simmer down a little bit, because things were very hot about a week ago. Things were still very hot, very contentious. Just being a Republican almost made you as a boogeyman. Almost to say. So I think that has calmed down a little bit. I think it will continue to calm down once we get into the first 100 days of the new administration. But I think this might be a transition in regards, unless Jonny, do you have something else to talk about in regards to censorship?
No, go ahead.
So I was going to say that I think what's going to push this further is how much the Democrats really do hate Trump. Because if they keep on pushing for impeachment after he's already out of office, which is already uncalled for to begin with, knowing that they're going to lose in the Senate because they can't get to 70 plus senators or 60 plus senators. I mean, what's the point of the impeachment?
Yeah, I think after the 20th, that impeachment is going to be a non-issue. He's out of office. So what's the point of keep going down that road if you're not going to have any?
But they're going to continue to use January 6th as and I'm surprised somebody hasn't come up with a clever name for it that's kind of stuck with everybody. But January 6th, I think they're going to continue to leverage what happened that day and use as an excuse for everything. I mean, AOC is already talking about using it, in terms of shaping the media, and what are we going to allow the media to say or not say, or what access they're going to have. We're seeing it now where Nancy Pelosi wants to fine legislators who refuse to go through metal detectors. Well, if you're a congressman or congresswoman, first of all, you're probably not carrying a weapon because you know better. Second of all, you're not the threat. And so again, it's one of these things where they're going to continue to use this as an excuse to push through all kinds of crazy legislation, and I don't know what it's going to take to stop them, but they're going to, literally milk this for all they can.
And what they do, in my opinion, Jonny, when they take advantage of the situation, to push whatever agenda, propaganda they have, I think they're taking away from what we really saw on January 6th. I think you saw a small portion of America that felt they were losing their stronghold, that their country they were losing their country, and was willing to become violent and break laws. So, I saw Joe Biden, he was giving his speech after it happened, and he said, well, what we saw at the Capitol does not reflect America. I disagree. I think that definitely does reflect America. And if you look how history back in time, when a certain group of people don't get their way, they resort to violence. So I disagree with that.
No, look, we see it every election cycle. Yeah. Do we not? They're obviously trying to make it out like this was somehow different from all the other riots and protests that we've seen. But at the end of the day, I think when you boil it down to what you just said, it's exactly right. We see this time and time again. Anytime somebody doesn't get what they want, they go out there and they break things and they destroy things and they attack buildings and people, and people get hurt. And this is just another iteration of that.
And you got to remember, 4 years ago on this date, the same people that are rejoicing and are happy today, they were pissed off 4 years ago. So it's just flip-flop, vice versa. So like I said, that was a true reflection of America.
Oh, yeah. I think what we're seeing now, and don't get me wrong, at the end of the day, any violence and any property, entering illegal property, all that is illegal, and you should be held accountable. People died at this event, but then also people have died over the upheaval and unrest throughout the summer. And 4 years ago, people died during the inauguration. I don't think people died at the last inauguration, but the Washington D.C. was on fire 4 years ago. So when Trump took office, so it's not we saw the violence happen last time. I don't think we're going to see that level of violence this inauguration. I'm very concerned if something does occur, then it puts more fire on how tense it is right now in the ether of the United States. Yeah. I know that the president has already said that he is expecting a smooth transition of power. Pence has kind of taken the lead role as representing this administration. I think he will be at the inauguration. The president is leaving the White House earlier that day, so he will not be in Washington when the inauguration does occur. I think actually that might be the smartest thing for him to do, is just we're done, we're over, we're moving on. I think that's fine.
Right.
But I am concerned of how big what's coming out of the FBI, what's coming out of law enforcement, saying that there's planned attacks in every single capital in the United States of America. I think that's very interesting to see how that's going to occur, and if it does occur, what are these capital cities looking forward to when it comes to protecting their cities? But again, that's so out of I just don't know anymore. I don't know how to take those threats.
They're very concerning. But I hopefully, law enforcement and our armed forces will be prepared and protect not only the capital, D.C., but
let's touch on that for a little bit, because again, not letting a crisis go to waste. Now I feel like we've kind of swung the pendulum the other way. I mean, you're a member of our military, To me, I think it's going to be crickets in D.C. for the next week. And I don't think anything's going to, I don't think anything's remotely going to happen. They claim they caught some guy with a weapon and stuff, but that happens, every 4 years, again, leading up to an inauguration. You got crazy people that are going to try stuff.
Well, you have an unprecedented show of force right now in D.C. So I don't think anybody would be crazy enough to try anything. And if they do, that's going to be a big mistake.
Yeah.
So I really don't foresee any national security issues happening in D.C.
Is the mall going to be open for people to watch? No. I think everything is closed down.
I mean, most of DC is already shut down entirely
for the coronavirus.
Yeah. Well, and again, now you have Capitol Hill, you have the Capitol, where soldiers are literally sleeping in the hallways. You've got, again, more military than we currently have anywhere overseas in Washington, D.C., and I think it's overkill. Now, they're obviously trying to say that they've got information, they've got intelligence saying that there's all kinds of threats, around the country, that justifies this. But I think this is more of a CYA move.
Exactly.
A lot of people trying to cover up for the mistakes and for a lot of the shortcomings on January 6th than it is about any threats that they might have for the inauguration.
I agree. I think that's probably what we're watching now is an show of force, which I'm okay with. Yeah. I'm perfectly okay with us seeing this. So then a lot of people are secure knowing that we're going to have a very smooth election without any kind of any large interference. Again, 4 years ago, half of DC was on fire. When this happened over the summer, DC was on fire for the riots and for the unrest. So I think we won't see this happening this time. I just want to make sure. I don't know. I'm not in the military. You probably know a lot more than I do.
Over the summer, DC was on fire, but the Capitol was protected.
Correct.
So,
look, and I said this, I made this point in our last show, which was that, the people that are saying that, the BLM riots and protests and, and even Antifa, for obvious reasons, were treated very differently than this rally was on January 6th. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. It's obvious. I mean, it's and that also should not have happened. You should, especially when you have as many people as you did show up for that rally. Now, whether or not they knew if that the rally was going to come up to the Capitol and all that, that's a whole different story. But again, I think you look at that as a precaution, and you say, hey, look, this might happen. We need to be ready. Correct. Just as if they were to be ready for a BLM protest or any other protest. Again, the response or the preparation for what happened on January 6th was severely underprepared in comparison to some of the other protests we've seen, even just in the last 4 years.
Yeah, and no matter it doesn't matter who was the protest. If it was a BLM, if it was a MAGA, if it was March for Dimes, it doesn't matter. A women's march. At the end of the day, you still have hundreds of thousands of millions of people inside your city, and you need to defend the Capitol, especially when session is happening. That is what's upsetting this whole time. I think that the fact that it was in session and they did not have the proper security, knowing that there was 500,000 people just a few blocks away.
Yep.
No matter what, no matter what it is, it should have been. They should have been secure. These are our leaders that are doing the nation's business, and no matter what side you fall on that, I think some people have resigned already from the fallout from what occurred.
Yeah.
But this is a huge problem, and it is true. They were playing favorites, and they didn't think that this was going to occur. Now, I will say this: the likelihood of something happening after a BLM rally and something happening after a mega rally, which one has a larger likelihood of something occurring in the city, that the event is being taking place. But again, it doesn't matter. It makes everyone look like egg on their face.
Changed now. I think that's changed now. I think with Black Lives Matter, and I've got a lot of friends, and we talked about this.
Yeah.
Did race play an issue? You have a bunch of African Americans protesting something. Maybe law enforcement or government automatically thinks, okay, some type of danger, some type of violence is going to take place. But you have a Trump rally. Oh no, just the good old boys. They come down here exercising their First Amendment, and we can scale it back.
Yeah,
and we saw it got very violent.
It got extremely violent. But I will say one thing: the likelihood of something happening after a Trump rally and the likelihood of something happening after a BLM rally, the percentages are out the door. There is I think it's a 72% chance that there will be violence after a BLM rally, whereas this is the one or two events have happened where there's been violence after a Trump rally.
This on this magnitude,
yes, that I agree with.
They stormed the Capitol. They took over a government building.
We lost 5 blocks in Seattle and in Portland from this. The pictures of DC on fire in June were horrific. The president had to go into the bunker because people were storming the White House.
True. But I think with this, what makes it so different, it's the Capitol. We have
Correct.
our elected leaders, and attempt was made to
and no one was expecting
disrupt democracy. So, could you say that's domestic terrorism? I don't know.
But would you call?
I would say they both are.
I think that's. I think that's.
I would say both of them are.
I think people are skirting the issue. Is that because again, if we say any violence should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. If you illegally enter any government building, you should be prosecuted to the fullest of the law.
What the left is trying to do in trying to make a bigger deal out of this Capitol siege, again, mind you, none of them had weapons. The only person was shot by Capitol Police. Mm-hmm. But yet, what the left is trying to do in making this a bigger deal than every other riot that is destroyed, federal buildings included, in addition to private property, public property, is that they're trying to say, well, it's the Capitol building, and they're trying to make it out like this building is somehow more important than somebody's small business or than the police headquarters that we saw go up in flames. I think it was in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. Again, that is just it's just a building, and again, the destruction and the lives lost. How many police? I think there was 5 police officers that died in just one of these riots, whether it was Portland or LA or something like that. But again, the comparisons don't stand up, and what they're trying to say is, well, this was a bigger deal because it was the Capitol building, and I don't think it should be treated that way. I think you treat them on a level playing field, because again, that you're diminishing the value of someone's house or someone's business, or again, the federal buildings that were in all these other cities, or the police station in Minneapolis, and you're going to tell me that those buildings weren't valuable, weren't of importance, in comparison to the Capitol building?
And we've had this conversation before, but I will say, in my personal opinion, this was to be expected. If you've been saying this whole time that you are an organization that stands up for law and order, how on earth are you able to justify your people doing what they did at the Capitol? Right. You cannot justify that. And that's what throws this whole thing out of whack. Don't get me wrong. 92% of everyone that probably attended the rally that day are law-abiding citizens that did what they did. They went to the rally, and then they went home, or they went back to the hotels. I'm going to say it, 95% of all individuals, 97% of all individuals that attend BLM rallies and BLM marches are good stand-up individuals that are fighting. They have the right to protest. They have the right to march because they are legitimately they want this dialogue. And this
but if they entered that Capitol, they also had every right to be arrested and
shot.
Go to jail for, shot. You know, I mean, as unfortunate as that was, that woman had no business being in the Capitol building. And if they had been treated like other protests, she might have likely have been shot anyways. If not more people had been shot in that way.
I totally agree. I think if Black Lives Matter, protests during the Capitol, I think you would have had a lot more bodies.
I will agree with that. I will completely agree with that. And I don't think it helps anyone to sugarcoat that response. I think that if that had occurred, also if there was a larger BLM protest in DC, you would have seen, well, we already saw it. That's happened before, where there is almost like a stormtrooper situation at the Capitol that they won't even let you within 100 feet of it with barricades and everything else. Again, I think just because it was a Trump rally or a MAGA rally and the majority of people in that rally were white, I think it was treated differently, which is completely disgusting, and it should not have happened that way. I understand. I get it, but it should not have been done that way.
And look, a lot of us early on were saying, hey, this was the work of Antifa. This was the work of some people, taking advantage of this rally. And I'll tell you, it's not looking that way. I mean, it's looking like because they have caught maybe, I think, a handful of people that were definitely anarchists. They got John Earl Sullivan. They got David or Blake or something like that.
David Hudson, what?
Yeah, but they caught a few people that are anarchists, who basically, literally want to see the world burn. But Hector, as always, he's like our guardian angel here. He's over in the comment section here on YouTube and saying, well, what is the future of QAnon looking like? Does it go away? Because let's be honest, they fueled a lot of this, and they continue to fuel a lot of really dangerous rumors, even as of today, saying that the president, may still have a chance to take office. And it's like, no, it's over. It's done. I mean, it was done weeks ago. And they continue to fuel this. And so what I hope happens is that people will realize that they've been lied to for months, and it will die. Or it will go, into the deepest parts of the internet, to be completely irrelevant once again. But I think it's a long time before it fades away. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, because it is scary how many people actually buy into what they put out. And now I have people constantly ask me, is this true? Is this true? Is this true? Because now they're questioning everything.
I'll say Q who.
Yeah.
At the end, they have, again, we saw this with the left. Even people I know today still say that Trump is not their president, and they will never call him his president. And I think Oprah doesn't even use his name anymore, or not Oprah. Whoopi Goldberg doesn't even use his name anymore on The View for months now. It's not like this just happened a few days ago. For months, she's refused to say the president's name, which again, it's her. She can do whatever she wants.
Yeah, and
she's
look,
Oprah. She did Sister Act.
There were those on the right. There were those on the right who did the same thing with Obama. Yeah. For 8 years. Yeah. I mean, and if you want to be that petty, then hey, more power to you.
Yeah, I saw something today. I think it was like Bay County GOP up in the Panhandle. They say they're not recognizing Biden as the president.
It's the Panhandle.
Yeah, so.
That's Matt Gaetz country, and that's all you need to know.
That's where most of the riders are from.
Well, let's not throw that around too quick. We had who's that guy? The guy that was walking away with Pelosi's lectern.
He was from Braden. No, he was
Paris.
From
Paris. Yeah, he was from Paris.
Aaron Johnson or something like that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Of course, Floridians.
There's always a tie back to Florida or Tampa Bay.
Florida says, "Hold my beer."
Oh my gosh! All right. Well, thank you again to everybody watching The Yard Sign, the most important relevant podcast in politics. Jonny Torres with Chris Chambers and Anibal Cabrera. As you can see, we have quite a list of things to talk about here on this Martin Luther King Day. We kind of got out of order here at the beginning of the show, talked about big tech censorship and also touched on the impeachment. One of the things that they've actually been talking about in regards to the impeachment is that if they continue to push it forward, which it's already passed in the House, so now the Senate has to take a look at it, is that it's going to hold up some of Biden's priorities as he takes office here in the first 100 days, or just takes office in general. boo-hoo. Certainly not crying about it. They wanted this, and so deal with the repercussions. But we've also seen statements coming out like he's going to repeal the contract for the Keystone XL pipeline. There's rumors swirling that he's going to grant amnesty to 11 million illegal citizens. These are very big, very likely, I think, it's low-hanging fruit for the left to push this stuff through. What do you guys think, how much of that do you think is actually going to happen?
I think a lot, actually. I wouldn't be surprised. So this is the thing. It's one can only happen at a time. Washington does not know how to do Washington doesn't know how to walk and chew gum at the same time. So if they're going to impeach, then let them impeach. Let them play this game, this charade and everything else. The last time they impeached, what was happening that no one was paying attention? Corona. Right. That's what was happening in the background during impeachment. And everyone was focused on impeachment while this virus from Wuhan, China was swept around the world. So if they decide to do this again, Biden doesn't get his cabinet picks, because you cannot be in the middle of an impeachment and try to push through your cabinet picks at the same time. It doesn't work like that. Like, they couldn't even have soda during the impeachment.
And that's why I feel the impeachment after the 20th is going to be a non-issue.
I agree with you, but I don't know if the Democrats are going to feel that way. It's going to, for the Senate to come back into session before the 20th, before the 19th is not going to happen. So they've wasted all this time now that we keep on talking about impeachment. He will be out of office. The country will think of it as petty. Now, Biden could be a genius and say, look, the country needs to move on. We're all moving on. We're gonna move on from this. He does that, his ratings are going to go up through the roof, and he can get pretty much whatever he wants. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, on the other hand, are going to want blood. They want blood. They want blood. Right. And if that's the case, then we're going to be marred in this for 30 days, 40 days. Something that I saw on Facebook a few days ago was like, it took the Congress 6 hours to impeach the president on their side, but it took them 9 months to get you $600. So, like, again, the
priorities. Priorities.
Oh, it's all priorities. Why wouldn't the government want to give you $600? Now,
well, especially in a bill that had about 5,000-6,000 pages.
Yeah.
It's going to be beautiful to see what happens. I think politics is going to override common sense, and the Democrats are going to try to go out for blood. They're going to fail. Again, the president has not been impeached at all. It's only been on one side, and he has to be convicted. If he's not convicted, he could run again. Now, do I think he's going to run again? I don't know about that. But the whole talk about you have to impeach so that he doesn't run for president is not a strategic thing to do, and it doesn't unify the country. You want to talk about unification? You don't impeach him. You move on. You give Biden a good first 100 days to do what he needs to do.
I totally agree. What's the whole goal of impeachment is to hopefully to remove him out of office. He's out of office. So
if the Republican Party doesn't do something about it, I think he gives it another go. I think he comes back because he's going to feel that he has the money, the resources. I mean, again, think about it. The majority of, and this isn't a negative criticism, but the chairwoman and co-chairman of the Republican Party nationally are very close to Trump. They are, and they have been for his entire administration. And then even here in the state of Florida, like I'm sure there is across the country, the state chairman is also a very close friend of Trump's. And so if you look at that, and obviously they're on I think 1 or 2 year terms depending on what state you're in. But does that give him the power that he needs long enough to not only be influential in midterm elections and hire more pro-Trump legislators, but then also does that give him enough momentum over the next 4 years to keep that base of support and give it another go in 4 years, unless Congress puts a stop to it somehow?
I don't see that. And number one, let's look at the age. Trump will be 78 in 4 years.
Yeah. So, be 79 if he wins and were to be inaugurated.
Okay. So I know Biden's age has always came up as an issue, and rightfully so.
Yeah, look, with some health concerns,
But you can't just be a hypocrite and just overlook Trump's age. And I think we were talking. He's left the presidency. Looks like in pretty good shape. Mm-hmm. But who knows what that's going to look like in 4 years? Who knows what the toll of losing this election is going to take on it.
Well, that's the thing. Anything he's going to try to do going forward is going to be met with the roadblock from the left. I mean, Josh Hawley, who somehow became a target in all of this in regards to what happened on January 6th, had Democrats literally rally against him and call up the Lowe's Corporation, where he was going to do a fundraiser in Orlando at one of the resorts, Universal Orlando, and they got Lowe's hotels in the middle of an economic crisis and pandemic to turn away this huge fundraiser that Josh Hawley was going to do. And of course, they're calling him all sorts of names and everything. But this is going to be, I think, what happens along the way. If Florida tries to give him a library, I think, they're going to fight it. The Democrats are going to fight it. I think anybody that's closely aligned to him is going to be met with huge roadblocks for anything and everything they try to do going forward.
But that's the pettiness of the Democrats.
Of course.
This, again, shows how petty the Democrats are and how unwilling they are to unify the country. If you continue on this path, especially after he's out of office, you look like an idiot that you're going to keep on pushing to impeach the president. Now, again, the world has changed from January 5th to January 7th. It's a completely different world. If the riots had not occurred on the Capitol building and it was a strong showing, and we all knew he was still going to lose the vote no matter what, because he didn't have the votes in the Senate or the House or for the electorate. We all knew that Joe Biden was going to get certified, but crazy people on the internet decided that it was going to happen, and now we have what we have. If it wouldn't have happened, I think the coattails for the president might have been long enough to allow for additional people to come on board, maybe for him to run for a second term. Now that it's not even a possibility, I don't think Trump runs 4 years from now. There's no reason to, unless the Biden administration falls flat on its face. Again, I'm looking at what they're already talking about for the first 100 days. They're going to reverse the ban on several majority Muslim countries for traveling back into the United States. They're going to rejoin the Paris Accord. Right. They're going to eliminate they're going to figure out how to eliminate or extend the limits on student loan payments. They're going to extend
another COVID overreach that they're going to take advantage of.
Yeah, they're going to expand the eviction of individuals until the following year for the pandemic. They're going to try to enforce a mass mandate, and this is the verbiage on this is important. Remember, the president doesn't have the power to make you wear a face mask unless you're in a federal building, and so they're going to require that mass mandate for federal property and for interstate travel, which is also something that the government does have control, or the federal government does have control over, is interstate
so
commerce.
Amtrak, airplanes.
Which a lot of airplanes, again, if you are following CDC guidance, you should be wearing a mask. Right. If you cannot be 6 feet or more when you're traveling. So the country's already doing these things. And again, his 100 days when it comes to the pandemic is nothing new, except that he will be wearing one while Trump didn't wear a mask. That's it.
Yeah, look, Hector is bringing up a good point that I want to address, which is, that there may be Republicans mixed in this that have 2024 aspirations that are going to obviously want to make it more difficult for him to run again. And I'm not saying that's not true to some extent, but the reality is that if any of them are caught doing it at this point, right now, at this juncture, it is more unpopular for them to go against Trump than it is for them to go with him.
No senator in any Republican state is going to vote against the president right now. Maine, I can totally see that happening. Yep. She could definitely do it. Alaska, she's always done it on that side. And there's like one or two more senators that might be able to, that will vote against the president. Rick Scott,
but nobody that's going to run in 2024.
No one. No one's going to do that. It's too soon. That's
and they know issue. That they need the Trump base if they want to even have a chance in 2024.
I don't know. I think, like you said, the world's a different place after January 6th. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people, anybody who's on the Trump coattails, may suffer and face repercussions. I mean, look what we're seeing across the world right now in your local politics. You're seeing states shift to blue who would ever thought you would see Georgia shift blue? I think
we saw, you and I kind of talked about this a little bit. Abrams did a great job fundraising and getting people out to vote and to register voters. Yeah. They did a great thing. Also, us fighting internally for the stimulus package is what pushed a lot of people to vote blue because they want $2,000. I mean, that's Republican, Democrat, liberal, libertarian, $2,000. People are always going to vote for their own interest. Right. And when it comes to money and Americans, that's what's going to happen.
But as someone in Congress said, thanks to, President-elect Biden for stealing the bill that Republicans were trying to get passed just like a few months ago.
But that's the thing. A lot of this was self-inflicted when it comes to the Republicans. We were less than 10,000 votes away, no, less than that, from winning in Georgia for the Senate seat. And yet it was a complete blowout this time because of the fact that they were infighting. And there are polls from PolitiFact that show the moment they started fighting about the stimulus package, about the $2,000, we lost that race. And you saw that with inside there. I will say this, though, in Florida, and I think a lot of people want to talk about Florida because we're in Florida. Matt Gaetz will be someone that we need to look into and see if he will still run against Rubio when it comes to the Senate. I don't think that happens now. Before January 6th, yes. I would have said it almost 100%. Matt Gaetz is looking for a way to run against Rubio. Now, I don't think so. Yeah. I also don't think Rubio
he's
or
too
Scott.
Close to Trump.
Yeah, he's too close to Trump. And Scott and Rubio are far enough away from Trump that they are perfectly fine. Again, we won the state by 5 points. This is not going to happen. Miami is a stronger foothold for the Republican Party than ever before. And Spanish people love what's happening right now. Like they love this drama. It's a telenovela. That's what's happening.
Well, and unless Marco.
What?
black people like it too. January 6th, I think every African American was sitting at home, eating dinner, watching the TV.
Yep.
Look at this.
Oh my gosh.
Well, what I was going to say is that I think the only circumstances under which we see a Matt Gaetz run for Senate is if Marco decides to run for president again and vacate the Senate seat like he did last time, which again, if we remember, that opened up the window to a Republican primary. Carlos Lopez Cantera won the primary and then stepped aside when Rubio... Oh, no, it was before the primary, I think almost at the finish line before the deadline. And then CLC stepped aside so that Rubio could be the nominee going into the Senate general election.
Also, the reason why Rubio resigned was not because the Senate requires him to resign. It was because people were telling that he wasn't serious about running for president. And that's the reason why he did it.
Yeah, which your bigger donors will tell you that.
Yeah, but Kamala Harris never, again, as a senator, you don't have to resign your position to run for president. Kamala Harris never resigned. Right. She's having to resign, I think, tomorrow. I think tomorrow she's having to resign so that she can become vice VP on the 20th. And then that's the thing. All of this is happening, and you can't move on from an impeachment until someone is picked to take over her seat. Once the Senate comes back into session, which will be after the end of the week. And then we're now like at the end of January when you start talking about this again. And you can't do anything when you start the impeachment trials. You can't get up. Everyone has to be there. No one can get up. Everyone has to sit. You can't drink coffee. You can't have soda. You can't have caffeine. Like, this is crazy. Like, it's absolutely insane, the restrictions.
And it takes away from what Biden wants to do in his first 100 days. It's just a waste of time.
It is a waste of time.
Hopefully, the worst part about this is that, again, people have been trying to play Biden off as a moderate, because he's been in the government for so long. First of all, I mean, he's never shown to be moderate. I mean, he's always sided with, I think, the farthest left of whatever's popular at the time within his party. I mean, again, we saw him be in favor of segregation, early on, in his early days in government politics. And again, he served under the Obama administration, and a lot of the people he's brought on, I mean, he's pulling from, he's talking about making, Bernie Sanders part of his cabinet, some people close to Elizabeth Warren part of his cabinet. He's brought in a lot of former Obama officials into his inner circle. This is going to be a continuation of that, and I think it's actually going to be maybe the most progressive agenda we've seen, even in comparison to Obama.
I think they get... Once the whole impeachment conversation is done, I think he's going to do, I think it's like up to 12 or 13 executive orders. Again, the ones we kind of talked about already, rejoining the Paris Accord, rejoining the WHO, rejoining a bunch of things that Trump had already removed himself from. And now that a lot of this is already uncoupled, we really can't put it back together, even if we do try. I mean, Europe is not going to go back down to 0.1% of their budget for military spending. They're going to continue at 2% because the Trump administration forced them to. Japan, Korea, and the Philippines regaining their maritime advantage over China, that's going to escalate because we've already kind of pulled back a little bit. Right. The U.S. being energy independent, a lot of things are going to start unwinding in the Middle East because we don't have to be there anymore under the Trump administration.
Well, we're already seeing the gas speculation as the gas now has gone up significantly. I think somewhere close to about 40 cents or so. I mean, just in the past few weeks, since the election.
I haven't noticed.
Oh, Lord.
Now, why is that, Chris Chambers? Why haven't you noticed the gas price increase?
I have a electric vehicle, so I definitely haven't noticed. But
really, you don't say. Tell us more about this fantastic electric vehicle you speak of.
Oh my goodness! Well, 2020 was just such a trying year. 2020 was just such a trying year for me, and I figured I need to treat myself something, nice.
Treat yourself.
Treat myself.
Yeah.
So I jumped on a Tesla bandwagon.
Nice. So jealous.
I jumped on that Tesla stock.
Either one, you'd be doing pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
What were we talking about?
Oh my gosh! Well, real quick, Hector was saying about that McConnell wants to get rid of Trump, and that he's blaming him for the losses in Congress in 2018. There were a lot of notches initially, but the truth of the matter is again, we won a dozen seats in Congress, and we're yes, obviously we took a few steps back in the Senate, but we're certainly in position to win the House 2 years from now, and we're far better off than anybody predicted we would be. So I think that's more of like a grassroots kind of base level rumor. The numbers don't prove that to be at all, because again, we had record wins in Congress that put us again within striking distance of taking back the House. We lost Senate seats that we shouldn't have, Georgia, but I think we'll make those back up in 2 years.
McConnell is just as much to blame for us losing in Georgia as Trump is. At the end of the day, if McConnell would have just said, yes, we'll do the $2,000 and we'll deal with it, then that would have been it.
Well, you're talking about Georgia, but that's just the Georgia Senate seats.
But those are the two seats I'm talking about. And also, who would have thought that we would pick up congressional districts in this election cycle?
12.
Who would have, exactly.
Yeah.
No one would have thought that. Normally, parties in power lose a lot of energy in a lot of seats. That's normally what happens. Again, what the Democrats are experiencing right now, having full control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, which they did when Obama became president in 08, normally only lasts about 2 years, and it's meant to not be that long. So I'm gonna say he's gonna get executive orders. I think he's gonna get the stimulus package he's looking for. 1.9 at the moment is what 1.9 trillion, which is what they're talking about. I don't think it'll end that number. I think it might go down further because you need about 10 more Republicans to sign on to that before it can go into budget, and then you can go with a simple majority. But we'll see what that number looks like. I think he gets maybe one or two more things done. I think they'll do something with student loans and forgiveness and figure out a way to do that. But
the unfortunate thing about all this is that Republicans ignored the deficit for 4 years. And now they're going to look like hypocrites because they're going to pretend that they care about the deficit again. And they allowed Trump to spend, just write checks like it's nobody's business. And yes, some of them, a few of those, I would say were due to the pandemic, but let's be honest. Nobody was checking any of his spending. He signed off on all the congressional budgets. And that's going to give Biden the open door to pretty much spend whatever he wants. So student loans, illegal immigration, like you name it, $15 minimum wage, federal. I think they're going to go for all of it. I think they're going for all the chips. And that's why they're pushing so hard on making a big deal out of January 6th, because the more they can push Republicans down into a position of weakness, they're going to try to leverage that as these policies get pushed in the first 100 days.
I agree to a point of your position. I think Biden will focus more internationally, trying to regain alliances, trying to make peace around the world. I think that's going to piss off Americans. And again, the Senate and the Congress were meant to go as slow as possible. So if that was the case, then we would already have $15 minimum wage during the Obama administration, because they were talking about it back then. The goal is to talk about.
Yeah, but did Obama really have the willpower or the
Obama had a full control of the House and the Senate by.
Yeah, but he used all that political power for Obamacare.
Yeah, again, he got one or two things out.
That was the first 2 years.
Yeah. So again, you only get one or two things out, maybe three out of your agenda. So talking about getting all this stuff done out of in the beginning of his administration is not going to happen. You get maybe 6 to 8 months to get all the stuff talked about. It takes time to get through the legislator, and it just takes time, because we're going to start talking about midterms by the end of summer.
Yeah, another thing they're also talking about, I don't think it's going to happen, is DC statehood, Puerto Rican statehood. Democrats are going to push for that. Don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they get it through. Certainly not in the first 2 years. And if any of those two were to happen, maybe DC statehood. But I think those in the swamp like it just the way it is.
I think it's a good talking point. It's a good rallying point. But
Yeah.
I doubt that we're going to see. Again, did the Puerto Ricans vote for statehood on their side? And it passed.
It passed.
Yeah. So I think that happened. And then I don't think it's going to pass with supermajority in the Senate, which I think is what's required for it.
Which, in my opinion, let's make it happen. I mean, they're practically citizens anyways, and their government, is a complete, S show.
Oh, we said so much more.
I mean, it is so corrupt and so backwards that the
as a
best thing
reminder-
we can do is go in there and just, wipe it clean and make them a state and hold them accountable to more federal regulation.
Oh, I definitely think it should happen. I mean, look at the Puerto Rican National Guard. They're in D.C. right now.
Yeah.
I mean, hey.
That's right. And again, they've fought alongside our military and, in every foreign conflict, since Puerto Rico became a state territory. I think they deserve it. They're literally inches away. I mean, it's like being, fourth and goal. I mean, they're right there, inches away from that touchdown. There's no difference, really. I mean, you might as well. They already get money from the federal government. They already, are a big part of our trade. I don't see the objection there. It's not like Cuba or Mexico, or you're not bringing in an entire nation of people who don't have rights and aren't paying taxes and aren't, these people are already doing all of that.
I think letting them
They even have representation in Congress.
So does so does American Samoa. So at the end of the day, I don't think Puerto Rico is going to become a state, because I don't think Puerto Rico wants to become a state. Their leadership really don't care. They love this Goldilocks situation they're in right now. They're getting about $30 billion in federal aid. They are allowed to almost like milk the whole system completely. I think
without any accountability.
Without any accountability. So why would the leadership care?
Yeah.
It's a good route. Exactly.
People.
I mean, Hector makes a good point, which is that they don't pay federal income tax. But to me, that's a selling point. That's one of the reasons I want them to become a state, so they can pay federal income tax and pay back for all the money that we've been giving them, for God knows how long, because they can't stay out of bankruptcy.
There's a lot of shell companies that will be moving out of Puerto Rico if they ever make the decision to actually make it become a state. Also, I don't want to have to buy a new flag. That's going to be so annoying. It's going to be off. It's going to be unsymmetrical. If we're going to do one, might as well do both. And
I think it'd be cool to have a new flag, like being around for a new flag. You know what I mean? Like being part of that.
Listen, if Mississippi can get a new flag,
That's right.
American get a new flag.
Does Mississippi have running water? I don't know.
Low blow.
I'm loving this side view, by the way. I can make comments on my face.
It adds like a whole dimension to it. It adds like a whole additional emphasis when you kind of put your face in the camera there. There you go. All right. Anyways, on that note, again, it is... 2020 again just kind of bled right into 2021, and it doesn't look like it's going to let up anytime soon. Things just keep getting weirder and more out of control, and where this bus stops, nobody knows.
This is America, baby. You were expecting things to calm down after the new year? Please.
Tell me about it.
That is not the way America works. We keep on going till we hit a wall, and then we file an insurance claim.
Speaking of the wall.
Oh, that's right.
The wall is going to be stopped.
The wall will be
stop
stopped.
building the wall, right?
But then there's also a migrant caravan that just broke through, I think.
Oh, yeah. Honduras?
Just broke through Honduras.
Yeah.
So they're going to figure out how to stop that, because...
No, Anibal, don't you know that migrant caravans don't exist?
Well, I'm watching it on TV, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Listen,
there.
I'm no national security advisor, but if we feel they're going to be coming this way, we need to get those riders from the 6th and send them down south.
I think it would be very, if you're gonna,
You want to defend this country, you need to go down south to the border.
Get them on that wall in Texas and
that's
figure
right.
that out. No, I think what's going to happen is that's going to be a very big key decision for the president. Are you going to let them all in, or are you again? We are a functioning democracy at the end of the day. We are a functioning country. You can't just have complete open borders. We need to figure out who these people are and where they're coming from. And is that baby really your baby? I mean, these are the conversations that really need to have. Because again, if and our church does a lot of things on the border. Our church does a lot of things in Central and South America. Those things are real. People die trying to get to this country.
Oh, yeah.
And then also people get trafficked all the time getting into this country. And when
The going rate apparently is about $2,000.
Yeah, what they say to you at the border is not going to be the same. The people that are bringing in children are a lot of times are not their parents, and they use it as a sympathy vote to try to get in. And again, I don't like the idea what happened with putting children. I think that's deplorable. What happened with putting children in cages, which happened under both administrations for probably longer than just that. But it needs to figure out a humane way to get this through, which is why you try to figure out
There needs to be a
legal
verification
immigration.
process.
Yeah, there needs to be legal immigration. And again, this was a conversation being had with the Democrats. This is a conversation that was had with the Republicans.
For years.
The West Wing was talking about this in the 90s. Like, this is nothing is new under the sun, biblical. Yeah. And so at the end, don't get me started. I was already ready for church earlier today, getting ready for my Bible study, so I'm good.
Yeah, look, and Hector, said earlier that, he's saying that they'll let them in because they represent cheap labor that's usually not done by Americans, and that's true.
Democrats are all about slave labor. Yeah, that's what that looks like.
Well, and then again, like the Republican farm workers, that depend on migrant workers. Again, they're that's a tough conversation for them to have because the cap. And I don't want to go down this tangent, but anyways, there's a migrant worker cap that's put forth by the federal government every year, and it's not sufficient. There's always a short, there's always people that come up short in trying to meet those minimum, or hire the amount of people that they need for whatever season they're trying to fill. Like here, it'd be watermelon and strawberries and tomatoes and that sort of thing.
Offended, triggered.
And so, I mean, is the cheap labor part of it? Absolutely. Is the votes also part of it? Yeah, absolutely. And let's not forget that, like every other country, we're also seeing a decline in population, which doesn't help our financial situation when it comes to the social programs that we try to keep funded. But it's, that's one way to solve the problem. I mean, Canada's doing it. Canada's got a pretty open door policy, right now.
Because no one wants to live in the snow.
No,
of course
I get
they can
it.
do that. So yes, the American birth rate has been increased because of legal immigration into this country. People having more children. It needs to be at least 2.1% above population to allow for the increase of the country. The demographic pyramid for the United States is very healthy. We would be surprised to see how many children come out of this pandemic because a lot of births are going to be projected for this coming years.
For the lost lives, I guess.
I'm not touching that whatsoever.
All right, let's go ahead and start wrapping this thing up. Thank you so much to Chris and Anibal. Chris, let's start with you. We'd like to wrap up the shows now, going into the stories that we didn't get to talk about today, local, state, national, but it's certainly a story that you're watching. What's on your radar?
Story that I'm watching? I can't think of any particular one. But, if I'm going to leave with an ending note, I'm going to leave with a quote by Martin Luther King.
Okay.
Can I do that?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Well, this year, right now, especially at this time in America right now, with so much divide, it's one quote that MLK says, and it says, "I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear." So I just want everybody to think about that in the time of divisiveness right now, if we can just all come together. And just be American, not be red, blue, liberal, or conservative. Just be an American. So that'll be my ending note.
I like it. Thank you very much. And Anibal, what story are you watching?
Well, now I feel like I have to be another quote also when it comes to MLK. I will say this. I think that his legacy has been so immense that both sides try to use it for their advantage.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's also a testimony to how he spoke to the general population and how he spoke to the common man when it came to bringing Christ and bringing the word out there. That he was at the end, because people try to co-opt his teachings, of MLK's teachings, and how he would use scripture to get to people's understanding of what he was trying to push when it came to social justice, and when it came also to being a self-independent person and being responsible for your actions. So I think both sides use it, and both sides are wrong by using it because they're not using it appropriately. I think politics should stay completely out of the life of that man. What I am looking forward to is seeing what the County Commission of Hillsborough County is going to do in regards to restricting bars and restaurants. I think what they're doing right now is obscene.
No dancing, Anibal.
I know. We went to Ybor City over the weekend, and you have to sit everywhere. It's like it's annoying.
No dancing.
I think it's very annoying. Also, it's not being treated fairly across the board. I've been to many locations in Hillsborough County where you're still allowed to walk around without a mask and be able to drink. And in Ybor City, especially for some of the LGBTQ community, they're really getting pressured, and they're getting a lot of focus, and they're getting fined. And the fact that you have county commissioners during their New Year's Eve activities not wearing masks and not following CDC guidance, but yet they feel that they can put pressure on the local restaurants and bars and clubs and feel that they can do that during the Super Bowl is very inappropriate.
I got a feeling all that's going to get lifted February 5th.
Oh, yeah.
If we keep doing these ridiculous restrictions, Tampa will never have a Super Bowl again.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, the simple fact is
they're only getting away with it because it's unpopular right now to say otherwise.
Yeah. I think what the governor needs to do is he's probably going to have to expand his executive order in regards to fining individuals to fining businesses. Also, I think that would be the best thing to do at the moment. But I also agree with you. I think it's going to disappear February 5th once all that is over.
Right now, it's just ridiculous. You mean I'm only going to get COVID when I'm standing up or sitting down?
Yeah. I mean, I had to slum it and go to a Walmart a few days ago.
Oh, you
and
poor thing.
The fact how crowded it was. There's no stickers on the floor saying about 6 feet distance. There's none of that. And people are wearing masks, people are not wearing masks. I'm like, if you are not willing to be as restrictive in those locations, Publix, Walmart, other grocery stores, other retail stores, and you're only focusing on bars because God forbid COVID travels more than 6 feet, or if you're sitting down and you're eating, you can't get COVID. Like, all of this is absolutely ridiculous. And so I think the county commission,
and not science-based.
It's science-based. If you're outside, and that's what they want to hit also, you have to be doing that. So I think that's something what I'm watching. And then for my other economy nerds.
Nope, you just get one.
No, I want to talk about Davos just released their press releases for the annual conference for the Davos Financial World Economic Forum, which is May 16th through the 18th. I'm so excited for that. I love it.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
To me, Davos always sounds like one of those things that happens that people don't think actually happens. Like, there's a lot of is this like really a thing? Like the Hildeberg Group or like the Illuminati? Like, whenever I hear about Davos, like, to me
it's only for tax write-offs.
Well, honestly though,
Yeah.
the reason
Right.
Davos still is going to meet this year, even though during COVID, because they met last year also. They just moved it to Singapore. So the what were the three things that you talked about?
I'm sure it's because it's COVID.
Yeah, no, well, Davos is a city in Switzerland, which allows for this kind of economic forum, and you get a tax write-off for visiting the country.
Yeah, I know. You get a bunch of millionaires and billionaires and powerful people who fly in their private jets to Switzerland to lecture us about climate change.
Well, yeah, you get the same situation with the Bilderbergs and what happened at Bretton Woods. Now, the Illuminati, I don't agree with. I don't think that's a legitimate thing.
You don't think that's a thing?
No, if it was, then I would already be a member. And so...
All right.
But I have submitted my application for the Bilderbergs.
There you go. All right. Well, I'll put in a good word.
No, literally, there's an application.
Kimberly chimes in with another great Martin Luther King Jr. quote, and I'll steal it, which is, "Love will in the end connect us to our neighbors, our children, and our hearts." He obviously is not only a huge figure in the development of our country, but in terms of social justice and I wish, that he wouldn't be misquoted and misused, his legacy in politics. But he is such a political figure, that had such an effect on the shaping of our nation's structure, our culture, our history, that he is part of our nation's political history. And it's one of those things where, if you'd asked me, maybe a year ago, I would say that we were certainly closer than we've ever been to living up to his expectations and his dreams for the future of this country. But I think we might have stepped back a little bit there in that regard. Certainly here over the last year or two.
I have full faith in the American experience moving forward.
I do
having
too.
A continuation. Why? Because Americans love their money, and they're not going to do anything to ruin that.
Yeah, no, it's growing pains. You know what I mean? And so, again, in that regard, I think, this is a learning situation and a growing situation. And it's all about how we handle it going forward. And so, look, and as I said, if both sides of a political issue are both angry at the same people, that's when you've got to get worried. And I think we're reaching that point. I mean, when you've got BLM on one side and whatever the Trump patriot people that were on the siege on the Capitol, when both of them are looking at the government saying you've messed up for far too long, I think they've got a much bigger problem on their hands. And so,
looking forward to it.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be out of Facebook jail. We should be out of Facebook jail by the time our next episode comes around next Monday, January 25th, 7:00. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the audio version of our podcast on all the giant tech overlords at Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, Audible, and again, YouTube. Not for YouTube, nobody would have gotten our show today. In the meantime, Mark can kiss it. On behalf of Chris Chambers, Anibal Cabrera, I'm Jonny Torres, and I didn't share the story that I'm watching, but I'm watching very closely Ron DeSantis' rollout with Publix of the COVID vaccine. I think this could be a game changer.
Should have been the first thing. I would get it if
Absolutely
it was from Publix.
have.
I trust Publix more.
Publix and then Chick-fil-A. I think I would have, I think if you hand out COVID vaccines in the Chick-fil-A drive-through, dude, you'd have like the whole state covered, like
In
I would
48
say.
hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Except on Sundays.
Except on Sundays. That's right.
Can't do it now.
Can't get your COVID vaccine on Sundays.
God forbid. You should be in church or watching church.
That's right. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Again, and hopefully we'll be out of Facebook jail by next week. Let me see. In the meantime, so long. Good night, everybody. See you next time.